Eberechi Eze, now I want to come on to him. Now, you
Mm.
mentioned the term release clause a moment ago, and that is something that does apply to Eberechi Eze, I think I'm right in saying. I mean,
Yeah.
what a talent, basically, first and foremost. Hasn't featured at all, I don't think, for England at the time of recording yet at the Euros. I mean, his injury issues appear to be behind him now. Let's touch wood on that one. I mean, he picked up a couple of things along the way last season, but nothing quite as serious as what had gone before. There've been reports just this week, Edmund, of contact being made between Liverpool and his representatives. I mean, that came from a
Mm.
Palace source. I believe the Palace Way were reporting that. Have you seen, heard, read anything to the contrary or to sort of back up those claims?
No, I have nothing that could back that up. All I would say is that it wouldn't surprise me um, if Eberechi Eze was now looking at his options, as I mentioned with Mark Gahey and Michael Elise leaving. That I think it will send a little bit of a shock around the squad, and they will be probably thinking, if this precocious talent who was sort of winning us games on his own towards the end is leaving, then where does that stand Crystal Palace for next season? Spurs have had a really long-standing interest in Eze. I think he has the same agent maybe as quite a lot of the Tottenham squad with Base, with Son and Ange Postecoglou as well. So that link works there. Eze's obviously got really firm links to the sort of South London area, set up his own foundation. So whether that plays into his thinking at all, who knows? I think Arsenal were linked as well this week. So that's probably him thinking Crystal Palace looks like it's on a bit of a change now to the direction it looked it was going in. So maybe it might be time for him to go as well. And he's done, I think he joined off the top of my head 2019 initially from QPR. So he's done nearly 6 years, 5, 6 years at Crystal Palace. So he's been a wonderful servant if he did go. And my question to you would be, where would he fit in at Liverpool? Because you got Dominic Szoboszlai, you've got Alexis McAllister, got a plethora of attacking talent as well. So I don't know where Eberechi Eze would necessarily maybe get into the squad.
No, I think it's a fair question. I do. I think it would, in terms of the central areas, you're probably right. I think it is too well stocked. We're relatively blessed in that department, I would say. I think I'd be looking sort of immediately to the left-hand side and looking to do a job more on the left wing. I mean, Louis Diaz's departure would have to be probably a prerequisite if that was going to become apparent, to be honest with you. I think we
Mm.
would potentially see him as a replacement for that. But I guess, as you say there, he is so good. He is such a talent. I mean, do you find room for somebody that good potentially? And Liverpool are well known, sort of renowned for
Uh,
liking release clauses as well.
yeah, well, I think it's in the £68 million mark, so it's not a huge amount of money for someone of his pedigree who's played Premier League football and done it consistently. My concern would be, I watched Eberechi Eze play on the left under Patrick Vieira.
Mhm.
I don't think that's his best position
Okay.
whatsoever. Eberechi Eze's best position is behind a striker as a 10, where he's given the freedom to attack defences. So if they're looking at him as that left winger, I wouldn't necessarily say he would. He'd have to cut on to his right the whole time, which
Mm.
which would force a certain style of play. Obviously, you got better players around you, so instantly that would elevate his game. But when he's had to do it on his own for Crystal Palace on that left, I don't think that's particularly really where he stood out. So yeah, behind the striker or as a sort of two attacking mids behind two strikers, I think that would be his best position.
Interested. I mean, what we do kind of know, we don't know loads about Arne Slot's Liverpool yet, of course, but we do. I think we all believe he will come in and play a 4-2-3-1, which is a bit of a change from what we've become used to under Jurgen
Okay.
Klopp, of course. And that will obviously have a number 10 or a more sort of familiar number 10 in amongst it. There's been sort of suggestions it could be Szoboszlai, Harvey Elliott also, but I guess if it wasn't either of those two, Fabio Carvalho as well entered that conversation. If it wasn't going to be any of those three, Arne Slot might be looking to sign a 10, and that could well be Eze, you know what I mean? So it does make some sense
Yeah.
in that area as well, I guess. You mentioned the £68 million mark there. I mean, Palace's hands are tied really on this one, I guess. I mean, similar in the way they work with Mark Gahey as well, because you mentioned the contract and the fact they have tried to negotiate a new deal and that hasn't been forthcoming as of yet. I mean, even if Palace wanted to sort of not lose Eberechi Eze and Michael Lee in the same window, which I'm sure they would be desperate to do so, they haven't really got much choice when it comes to Eze. So do you see his future lying elsewhere, as unfortunate as that may be?
It's a tough one. I think before he got into the England squad, my automatic thought process I would have imagined, just due to before he had the run that he did before the end of the season, that maybe someone might not have stumped up the £68 million. But when you're looking at it, an England international who's had lots of Premier League game time and done it very consistently for Crystal Palace, apart from maybe one spell under Patrick Vieira where he wasn't enjoying his football as much. It's not really a lot of money these days, and if Liverpool are looking at a rebuild, and if he is going to play behind that striker, and even if he's interchanging with the two attackers next to him, I still think that would be quite an exciting prospect. So Palace's hands are tied, you're right in saying that. If someone wants to come down and put the money and do it. I think Manchester City last summer showed quite a fair amount of interest in Eze, and obviously they also showed interest in Paquetá, but neither of those happened. They went for Mateus Nunes, which hasn't looked like to be the best decision. So he is someone who could play at the very top level. And I think what also I've noticed about Eze, when he has the better players around him, Wilf Zaha, Michael Elise, even Adam Wharton, someone who's a very, very good talent as well. He can really link up with those well. So if he has got the likes of the Liverpool squad around him, and what could happen next season under Slot, I think it's an exciting project for him.
Yeah, most definitely is. Yeah. And just finally, I mentioned I was going to ask you sort of a gut feeling based on what you know, based on what you've seen, based on reporting and stuff like that. I'll ask you first about Mark Gahey. Do you think, Crystal Palace probably start next season with him, or they could not do, but the chance that they do, and yet still he goes. So I'll ask you a little bit further down the line. Come the end of the summer transfer window, will Mark Gahey still be at Crystal Palace? What's your thoughts?
I don't think Mark Gahey will still be at Crystal Palace just purely because of what he's doing now for England. I think that's going to convince someone pretty promptly to come and stump up what Palace are asking. I think Palace, although they weren't expecting it, are now going to be on the cusp of quite a big rebuild. And I think they're going to have to go out and find players who are proven and ready to come in, instead of 2 years ago where they bought all these players, Elise, Gahey, Conor Gallagher on loan. They got Sheikh Doucouré as well, who's obviously been admired by Liverpool in the past, where they've had these players who have been given time to grow. Palace now need players to come in and do the job under Oliver Glasner. So it's going to be a little bit of a shift towards the football club and where they're going. I don't know necessarily whether Mark Gahey is going to be a part of that, and moving to somewhere like Liverpool for me would make a lot of sense. Champions League football is very hard to turn down when you've been at a mid-table club for a number of seasons, and quite frankly, he deserves it because he's a very calm, composed, and an elegant centre back, and I think it would be fitting of his attributes.
Okay, interesting. And a very similar question about Eberechi Eze.
I think Eze's more likely to stay. I think Eze could end up being the figurehead of what Oliver Glasner wants to do at Crystal Palace. I know they gave him a new contract last year, but if you're losing Elise and Gahey and you say to Eze, well, maybe we tie you down to an even better contract and give you the sort of the Wilf Zaha mantle maybe a little bit in terms of what he did for the football club for a while, then I think that makes more sense to me. He's 25, 26 in a couple of days. It speaks more to me that he's more likely to stay than Mark Gahey.
Okay, interesting. I guess I've thought of another question whilst you were talking there. I guess Palace will, obviously we know about they might sort of build a team around Eberechi, as you're saying there, which makes perfect sense, by the way. But just on the Mark Gahey one, I guess even though they've been to the table once with a new contract talks and stuff like that, I guess they'll do everything in their power, pull out all the stops, if you like, to try and keep Gahey, because they won't want to appear to be this selling club, having already lost Elise, I assume.
No, it is the club's model, though. It is something they've tried to move towards and made a sort of executive decision to let a few years ago the likes of Patrick Van Aanholt, James McCarthy, Gary Cahill, people like that all leave who were on really big money. They shrunk the wage bill. Obviously Zaha left as well, who was the top earner, and it was go towards buying these younger players with potential and sell them on. I think it's the life of the club in that model. I think Brighton have shown, although maybe they didn't get it totally right last year, it is really doable to get into Europe if you have got a plan and necessarily replacements ready. So but I do think, as you mentioned, Palace will look to probably try and give Mark Gahey a new contract. They'll go in with an even better and improved offer, one that's fitting of a starting England centre-back, and see whether that can entice him to stay. I think the only thing would be that if he's excited by the project that Oliver Glasner has, who is a very, very good coach and someone who wants to take Crystal Palace into Europe and try and do what he did with Eintracht Frankfurt, then who knows? Maybe he gives it one more year, but he's ready. Mark Gahey is ready for the move, I would say.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's mad how, I mean, it's fascinating how obviously Oliver Glasner, at the end of the season, Crystal Palace had has changed and shifted the landscape and potentially to force some feel into that squad a
Yeah,
little bit. But then obviously you throw Mark Gay's England form into the mix and that caveat, and then it shifts it again ever so slightly because he's probably thinking, oh, I am ready for that step up now in my career. I don't need to wait a year to see how a project unfolds. You're absolutely right.
yeah.
Edmund, pleasure speaking to you. Let people know where they can find your work and keep abreast of everything Crystal Palace related and stuff.
If you want to pop me a follow on X at Edmund Brack, then that would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, no, thank you very much for asking me on, and yeah, I really appreciate it, mate.
No, man, my pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Top man. Thanks so much. Everybody else, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you soon. Take it easy.